The jungle burned. Branches cracked in the fire. The night sky was red. Explosions echoed across the trees. Screams both human and not came from the shadows. Captain Elias ran. His uniform was torn. His boots were muddy. His gun was out of charge. His last flare had already burned out, and the radio was just static. Behind him, his squad was gone. Swallowed by something big. Something fast. He had landed just yesterday. The mission was simple. Guard the research camp and map out the strange jungle. No one expected a fight. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Elias jumped over a fallen log and kept running. Every sound made him flinch. A branch cracked, and he spun around, raising his empty rifle. Nothing. Just shadows, vines, smoke. Then came the growl. It was deep and angry, like a wild animal, but it wasn't just an animal. Elias had seen its eyes earlier, burning yellow, almost intelligent. He had seen it tear a man in half like paper. Now it was hunting him. He turned and ran again. But the ground gave way beneath him. Elias fell. It wasn't far, maybe 10 feet, but he landed hard in the pit. The dirt was soft, almost too soft, like it had been dug recently. His ribs ached. He tried to climb out, but the walls were smooth and high. He was trapped. Panic crept into his chest. Was this a trap? A sinkhole or a grave? A heavy thud landed behind him. He turned slowly. There she stood. She was tall, at least 7 feet, and covered in thick fur the color of fire and earth. Her arms and legs were strong, her claws sharp, but her face, it was strange, not fully human, not fully beast. Her eyes locked onto his. Her chest rose and fell with quiet power. Elias opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, she stepped forward and shoved him back. He hit the wall and slid down. Stunned. She didn't attack. Instead, she sat beside him. Silence filled the pit. The jungle burned above, but inside the pit, there was only them. She didn't growl now, didn't move. Just watched him. Elias breathed slowly, trying to think. His training didn't cover this. Was she some kind of alien, a protector, a predator? Her body was warm, even from a distance. Her fur shimmered in the faint firelight above. She had a scar across her stomach, fresh and bleeding. He realized she had been injured, maybe from the fight. She looked away from him and stared up at the sky. Time passed. Neither of them spoke. He didn't even know if she could. The pit became quiet. Then, without a word, she slid closer. Elias didn't move. Her large body settled beside his, close enough that he could feel the heat from her skin. Her scent was wild earth, smoke, something sweet underneath. She looked down at him. Not like prey, like a question. He didn't understand what she wanted, but something told him she didn't plan to kill him. At least not yet. When he looked into her eyes, he saw pain. Not just the injury, something deeper. Something lonely. She had thrown him into this pit. But now she chose to stay, all night. Neither of them slept. Elias shifted slightly, careful not to startle the Beastwoman. She hadn't moved since last night. Her tall frame stayed still, her golden eyes half closed. The morning light slowly reached down into the pit, soft and warm. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful, until he remembered the smoke, the fire, and the screams from the night before. He looked up. The pit walls were still high. No vines to climb, no rope. He was still trapped. She turned her head and stared at him again. Calm, watchful, like she was waiting for something. Elias sat up slowly. "Do you understand me?" he asked. No answer. But her head tilted slightly. He tried again. "I don't want to hurt you." She snorted softly, like a quiet laugh. Then slowly, she lifted her arm and pointed to the gash across her ribs. Blood had dried into her fur. The wound looked painful, red and swollen. She didn't growl, didn't flinch. Just waited. Elias understood. He pulled a small pouch from his belt. A basic med kit. It wasn't much, but it had disinfectant and gauze. He held it up and showed her. "Help," he said softly. She didn't move. So he leaned forward carefully. His hands open, slow, gentle. She stayed still as he cleaned the wound. Her muscles were tense, her breathing low, but she didn't stop him. When he pressed the gauze, she gave a sharp breath, but still didn't strike him. Elias wrapped the bandage tight and leaned back. "There," he whispered. She touched the bandage once, then looked at him again. And then, for the first time, she spoke. One word. Deep, low, but clear. "Why?" Elias blinked. Her voice was rough but not cruel. "Because you're hurt," he said. "And you didn't kill me." She said nothing. A few more minutes passed. Then she stood. Her full height made Elias feel small. She looked strong enough to tear apart trees. But instead, she reached down and grabbed his wrist. He tensed, but didn't resist. With one quick pull, she lifted him to his feet. Then she jumped. Her claws dug into the pit wall as she climbed fast, pulling them both up in one motion. Elias held on tight, shocked by her strength. At the top, she tossed him gently onto the ground and climbed out after him. Elias sat up and stared at her. The jungle was quiet now. The fire had stopped. The smoke still floated above the trees. But there were no soldiers. No camp, no bodies. Just silence. She turned and began to walk. Elias hesitated. Then followed. They moved through the jungle. She walked barefoot, silent and sure. Her body moved like a shadow, graceful but powerful. Elias tried to keep up. He had so many questions. Who was she? Why did she save him? What happened to the others? But she didn't speak. After some time, they reached a small clearing. A flat stone sat in the middle. She motioned for him to sit. He did. She sat across from him, her eyes serious. Then she placed a clawed hand over her heart and spoke again. "Ruva," she said. Her name. Elias nodded. "Ruva," he repeated, pointing at her. She gave a short nod. He pointed at himself. "Elias." She stared for a moment, then nodded once more. The silence returned, but it was no longer tense. She didn't just throw him into the pit, she brought him out. Now she shared her name, and somehow, Elias felt that everything had just begun. The jungle seemed calmer now. Elias sat on the flat stone, wiping sweat from his brow. Ruva sat across from him, silent as always. Her yellow eyes stayed locked on the forest, always watching, always alert. They hadn't spoken much since sharing names, but something between them had changed. She trusted him, at least a little, and he didn't fear her anymore. Still, he didn't understand why she had saved him, or what she wanted. Elias looked around. "Where are we going?" he asked quietly, more to himself than to her. Ruva pointed toward the trees. Then she stood and started walking again. Elias followed. The forest got thicker. Vines hung like ropes from tall trees. Strange birds cried out in the distance. Once, he saw a shadow move high in the canopy, but when he looked again, it was gone. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the jungle felt. "Do you live out here?" he asked. No answer. She didn't need words. Her body said enough. Every step strong, every glance careful. She wasn't lost. This was her home, and something dangerous was near. Ruva stopped suddenly and raised a clawed hand. Elias froze. They crouched low behind a thick bush. Through the leaves, Elias saw it, one of the things that had attacked the camp. It looked like a beast, but not like Ruva. This one was bigger, darker, uglier, gray skin, long arms, jaws filled with teeth. Its back was hunched, and its claws scraped the trees. It sniffed the air, growling low. Ruva stayed perfectly still. Elias held his breath. The creature moved past them slowly, then disappeared into the fog ahead. Ruva exhaled. She stood, calm again. Elias was still shaking. What was that? he asked. Ruva looked at him, her voice deep and quiet. Hunter. Elias frowned. One of yours? She shook her head slowly. Enemy. They kept moving. Soon they reached a place that looked almost sacred. A wall of stone shaped like a circle. In the center was a wide pit, another one, but this was different. It wasn't meant for trapping. It looked old, ancient, like it had been used for something important. Ruva walked to the edge of the pit and placed her hand on the stone. Elias stood beside her. What is this? He asked softly. She looked down at the pit, then at him. Test. His eyebrows lifted. What kind of test? She pointed to the stone edge. Carvings were etched deep into the rock. Symbols, pictures. One showed a Beastwoman standing beside a human. Another showed the two of them fighting side by side against a giant creature. It hit him then. She hadn't saved him by accident. She had chosen him. You brought me here on purpose? He asked. Ruva nodded slowly. You want me to fight? With you? Another nod. Elias stepped back. Why me? She didn't speak. Instead, she took something from around her neck, a piece of broken metal. She handed it to him. He turned it over. It was part of a human dog tag. Old, worn. He read the name. His brother's name. Elias's eyes widened. You knew him? He whispered. Ruva's face was serious. He passed. Helped me. I help you. Everything changed in that moment. She hadn't just saved Elias because of who he was. She had saved him because of who his brother had been. And now she wanted him to finish what his brother started. Side by side. In a war no one back home even knew existed. Elias held the broken dog tag in his hand for a long time. His eyes stayed on the name, tracing each letter with his thumb. It had rusted over time, but the letters were clear. El Marlo. His older brother, gone for years. Lost in a jungle mission. Presumed dead. No one ever recovered the body. Now Elias knew why. He turned to Ruva. You knew him? She nodded once, slow and deep. Elias's throat felt tight. What happened to him? Ruva knelt near the stone pit again. She drew lines in the dirt. Two shapes. A human and a Beastwoman. Then a third figure, large, monstrous. Sharp teeth. Many legs, long arms. She drew fire around it. Hunter, she said. He fought it? Yes. Did he win? Ruva's hand paused. Then she pointed at herself. He saved me. Elias swallowed hard. The air felt heavy. So his brother hadn't vanished for nothing. He had died protecting her. And now you saved me, Elias whispered. Ruva said nothing. But something in her eyes softened. They sat together in silence. No more words were needed. Later, Ruva stood. She looked toward the dark trees and sniffed the air. Her fur bristled. Elias stood too. What is it? They come, she growled. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground, old, chipped, but still sharp. Ruva handed him a leather strap and tied another around her waist. Simple armor. They were preparing. The trees shook. Something huge moved through the forest. Stay close, Ruva said. From the shadows, 3 of the hunters appeared. Bigger than the one they saw earlier. Their gray skin rippled with muscle, and their jaws dripped with thick black saliva. Their eyes locked on Elias. One let out a loud screech and charged. Elias raised the spear. His heart beat like a drum in his chest. Ruva leapt first. Her claws slashed through the air as she met the beast mid-jump. They crashed into the dirt with a loud roar. Elias swung his spear at the second beast, barely missing. It clawed at him, tearing his sleeve, but he ducked and stabbed forward. The tip hit flesh. The creature screamed. The third hunter circled him. Elias backed up, but there was nowhere to run. The pit was behind him. It lunged. But Ruva moved fast too. Fast, she grabbed it mid-air and slammed it into the ground. Her claws ripped through its chest. Blood sprayed across the dirt. Elias stood frozen. She looked back at him. Fight. He tightened his grip. He wasn't a soldier anymore. Not just a guard. Not just a lost man. He was part of something now, part of her war. The second hunter rose. Again, growling. Elias stepped forward and shouted as he drove the spear deep into its throat. The beast fell hard and didn't move again. He was shaking, but alive. Ruva stood among the dead. Her fur streaked with blood. Her chest rose and fell fast. She looked at him with new eyes. Pride. You strong, she said. Elias wiped blood from his face. Not strong alone. She nodded once. Then slowly, she stepped forward and placed a clawed hand on his chest. Together. The word was heavy. Final. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a bond. A promise. And Elias felt it deep. In his bones. He wasn't leaving this jungle. Not until it was finished. Not until every last one of those hunters was gone. The fire was small but warm. Elias sat close to it. His arms scraped and his clothes dirty. Ruva sat beside him, quiet as always. Her wounds had stopped bleeding, but the cuts on her arms still looked deep. She didn't complain. The three hunters lay far behind them now, buried beneath heavy stone. The fight had left them both tired. Ruva handed Elias a chunk of roasted meat. It smelled strange but tasted good enough. He chewed slowly, glancing at her. She wasn't just a beast, not a monster. She was something else, something wild and wise. Strong, but not heartless. How many more? He asked. Ruva looked up at the stars. Too many. Elias nodded. Then we keep going. She tilted her head. You stay? He didn't answer right away. The jungle was deadly. He was tired, but his brother had stayed. And Ruva had risked everything to protect him. He owed her more than words. I'm not leaving you, he said. Her yellow eyes met his. For the first time she smiled. Not with her mouth, but with her eyes. The fire crackled between them. Later that night, they found shelter under an old stone arch covered in vines. Ruva moved close to him, not out of fear, but something else. She placed her head near his shoulder, her tail curling beside his leg. Elias didn't move away. It wasn't about safety anymore. It was about trust. In the morning, Ruva led him to the edge of a canyon. Below was a wide valley filled with movement. Dozens, maybe hundreds of hunters moved through the trees. Elias stepped back, shocked. They've built a nest. Ruva nodded. They grow fast. He stared at the massive dark shape at the center of the valley. It was bigger than the others. Its body pulsed like it was breathing. Around it, the smaller hunters guarded closely. What is that? Elias asked. The queen, Ruva said. She births them. Without her, they die. So that's the real enemy. Ruva nodded slowly. They watched for a long time. The hunters crawled over roots, tore trees, and fed on bones. Human bones. Elias's fists clenched. They had to stop her. But it wouldn't be easy. She knows I live, Ruva said. She hunts me. Why? I killed her mate, long ago, before your people came. Elias blinked. You started this war? Ruva didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, I survived. She calls that war. Elias understood now. This wasn't just a battle, it was a hunt. The queen wanted Ruva gone, and maybe anyone who stood beside her too. How do we stop her? Ruva stepped closer. We go below, at night. Kill the queen. Elias looked down again. It was suicide, but he nodded anyway. I'll go with you. Ruva stared at him, searching his face. You are not your brother, she said. I know. You are more afraid. He smirked. I also have better aim. Ruva gave a low, amused growl, then touched his chest again. Tonight, she said. One way, no return. Elias looked at the valley, then at her. I'm ready. Night came fast. The sky turned dark, and a soft mist rolled over the trees. Elias checked his gear. A spear, 2 sharp knives, and a torch soaked in oil. Ruva carried a bone blade longer than his arm, and a sack of strange-smelling powder. She had tied her fur back with a leather band. Her body was ready for war, but her eyes held something deeper. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. They moved through the forest, shadows among shadows. The sounds of hunters echoed in the air, deep growls, cracking branches, wet chewing. But the night helped them. They reached the canyon edge without being seen. Below, the queen pulsed like a living mountain. She was massive, dark gray and black, her legs thick as tree trunks. Her body heaved with each breath. Around her, the hunters slept in groups, twitching and breathing like wolves. Elias looked at Ruva. She nodded. They climbed down the rocks slowly, careful not to slip. One wrong sound and the entire valley would come alive with teeth and claws. When they reached the bottom, Ruva motioned to the sleeping hunters. "We move quiet." "Fast," she whispered. They crept past the beasts. Elias held his breath the whole time. One of the creatures twitched and sniffed the air, but it didn't wake. Finally, they reached the queen. Up close, she was worse, smelling of blood and rot. Her skin was cracked, covered in scars and moving veins. Her eyes were closed. Her mouth hung open, lined with long dripping fangs. Ruva handed Elias the sack of powder. "Throw it in her mouth," she said. "I distract." Elias froze. "That's suicide." "She won't kill me," Ruva said. "She wants to watch me break." Ruva stood and let out a roar. Every hunter's head snapped up. The queen's eyes opened, huge, glowing, full of hate. The ground shook. The hunters screamed and charged. Ruva ran forward, straight at the queen. Elias moved fast. He ran to the side, climbed a thick root, and jumped above the queen's head. She didn't see him. Her eyes were locked on Ruva. Ruva dodged the queen's giant claws and slashed at her legs. The queen shrieked and lunged, smashing trees and rocks. Elias reached her open mouth. With all his strength, he threw the sack inside. Then he lit his torch and tossed that in too. There was a moment of silence. Then the queen screamed like a storm. Her body twisted, smoke pouring from her jaws. The powder burned from within. Her legs collapsed. Hunters screamed in confusion. Some fled. Others dropped dead as black fluid sprayed from her belly. Ruva leapt away just in time. The queen slammed into the dirt, her huge body shaking the ground. Her eyes went dark. The hunters scattered into the jungle, lost without her. It was over. Elias stumbled toward Ruva. She was on her knees, breathing hard, blood on her shoulder. He helped her up. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she said. Softly, "We did." They climbed out of the canyon before sunrise. By the time they reached the pit where they first met, the sky was turning blue. They sat together on the soft earth. "No more running. No more hiding. Just quiet. You're not going back, are you?" Ruva asked. Elias looked at her and smiled. "I don't think I can." She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. Her tail curled beside his leg again. For the first time since landing on this planet, Elias felt something that had been missing: peace.